Welcome to the Hoops Forum, a joint effort of Radius Athletics and a Quick Timeout podcast. I'm Tony Miller, and I'm joined by Randy Sherman of Radius Athletics. If we could kind of describe what we're doing here today with these live streams and maybe describe it in just a few words, it would probably be the words or the phrase education and conversation. As the term forum implies, we really would like for these live streams to kind of be an opportunity for coaches to meet and exchange views and ideas on a variety of topics connected to the game of basketball. And so while Randy and I will be the two main faces that you see here, it won't just be our views that are shared. This is where kind of you all can come in each week. We're going to try to at least have one poll that we have, a Hoops Forum poll, which you'll see here in just a few moments, and we'll try to incorporate that into the show. You can find that each week on both Radius Athletics and my Twitter feeds. In addition to that, we'd like to feature your comments and questions in the show. All you need to do for that is just simply to reply to this post here on Twitter, and we'll integrate those throughout the show. Whether it's a question or a topic, maybe a comment that you have on a topic that you think that others would benefit from, be sure to submit those in the replies. And like I said, we'll try to use those throughout the show. Before we get any further, I want to thank our sponsors over at 323 Sports. If you're in the market for a team dealer, I'd highly recommend the guys over there at 323 Sports. Whether you're in need of uniforms, basketballs, team gear, equipment, 323 Sports can help your sports program. So for more information with them, visit 323sports.com or email sales@323sports.com. I usually won't take this long to get to Randy each week here, but Coach, let me just start out by just welcoming you and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out to me about this idea. I'm really excited about it. I think we're going to have some great topics and great discussions and engage a lot of coaches. So appreciate you thinking of me for this idea.
Absolutely. So there's probably a good chance that a lot of the viewers that we have here are familiar with you. But if by chance they don't know a lot about you, maybe just give them a little bit of a breakdown of who you are and kind of what you do right now.
Yeah, what I do is just offer my eyes and ears to basketball coaches. I have a coaching background. I coached a high school basketball coach for 11 years and got in the sports performance business for a little while, and then you kind of wanted to re-enter the basketball space and did it through social media and blogging and content creation and just lending my eyes and ears and thoughts to coaches and that's what I do now. So this is just another way to do that. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and if by chance you don't know who I am, like I said, I'm Tony Miller, and I tell people that I make a living. I do as a college professor, but the basketball, if you looked at my paycheck, it's more of a hobby than it is probably a job. But I've enjoyed that for the past 9 years. I say 9 years, but that's probably generous to call this season a full season,
right?
Maybe 8.5 years. And that kind of leads us to our topic that I want to talk about today. Coach, we were kind of talking about this a little bit at the beginning, and it's just simply the fact that the poll that we had here, the season that we have this year doesn't look normal, right? And the question just simply was, is your team playing games this season? And you can see from the poll there on the screen that approximately 65% of coaches said yes, 20% said no, and then about 14% kind of still to be determined whether or not they're going to be playing. And so I'd like to focus on these three groups here today. Those of you that are watching, you may fall, within that yes group, and some of the stuff that we talk about here at the beginning may be more applicable. But, even the no and to be determined, I think even if we're in the yes category, that if we're honest, a lot of it may be to be determined just simply because we don't know how many games we're going to get in or, how many teams are going to call in sick. So, Randy, let me just start with this initially. As you work with coaches, what do you feel like you're repeating most as coaches go through their approach to this season? Because, like I said, for most of us, even if our team played first semester and played about 6 competitions, but, we've had so much of a break here in the middle that January almost looks like a new season in itself. So kind of how do you approach this year?
I'd say there's 2 things I've been repeating the most, and that's a great question. The first is, this is only temporary. This in terms of, you're going to coach 20, 30 years, have a full career until retirement. Hopefully 1 to 2 seasons are going to, feel interrupted in the grand scheme of things for your coaching career. This is temporary. I do understand that, like, many of you coach players who this is their one opportunity to get to play basketball, whether that be high school, college. That these moments can't be recaptured. They're lost for those players, and you maybe feel empathy toward them. But to my audience of coaches, is what I'm saying most is, this is only temporary. I'd say the second thing I've been saying the most is some roundabout way of saying, like you're going to have to accept the facts on the ground as a coach. You can't get lost in poor me, or our my best player got quarantined, or we had a game and it got canceled. You have to kind of take a what's next mentality, coach the kids that are in front of you, and prepare for the next practice game without sort of getting too lost in all of the the distractions and the upheaval and the lack of routine that's going to be inherent in this season. So those are probably the two things that I've repeated the most.
Yeah, and you and I were talking even before the show about this. Just as I think a key word here is like expectations. Whether that's expectations on the part of the players or expectations on the part of the coaches themselves. But like you said, those kids have expectations about what the season's going to look like. And
Sure.
if you do have juniors and seniors, how can you still make the most of their season? And we can circle back to that when we talk about even the groups that aren't going to be participating. For those that are watching, I'd be interested, maybe what are your expectations for this season? Are the expectations any different because of the fact that maybe you are playing, but you don't know how many games you're playing? Or, we all have this, we want to win every game and we want to win the championship. And maybe you communicate that to your players, and maybe you don't. I'll say from my perspective, I've been very honest with the players, and, every game is a gift. You don't know how many you're going to have. You understand this, Randy, but remember preparing kids for a game, and then maybe there was a snow day or something, and how disappointed that was. So, I mean, even handling that, what are your thoughts about maybe how would you go about even viewing a season like this?
I can definitely empathize with that. The snow day, parallel you drew there, but I think that again, you kind of just have, how I would deal with it. My knee jerk would probably be to be emotional or angry or feel like I'm being singled out or picked on, or I'm some sort of victim or poor me. But I would hopefully I would quickly snap myself into thinking like, hey, what's next? Like, okay, this is nothing I can change. It's outside my sphere of control. And just, all right, well, we're not playing tonight, or we're going to practice tomorrow. And what can I do as a leader to make that move us forward even an inch, right? Like something, you just kind of have to just take a what's next mentality and stick with it.
I've even said to kids, at the college level, we're playing with a free year basically, and kids are able to come back next year. This year doesn't count against their eligibility at all, but it is kind of a free year of player development. And maybe we can talk about this as well. The coaches out there who, you said knee-jerk reaction, a knee-jerk reaction to having success this year. Like, oh, well, then how can we quickly have success? You can answer that. And then also, do you feel like does more harm in the long run, or is it something that we should be considering based off what's happening this year?
Yeah, I kind of have torn emotions around this answer. Like, I think if you're a leader of a basketball program, I think a lot of people are going to feel like the growth arc of their program is taking a step back this year. I think a lot of people, maybe if success might be the growth arc of our program sort of flatlined this year. We didn't progress because of interruptions and cancellations and things like that, but we didn't regress either. I think that would be a win if we could just kind of hold, like, as in the growth arc is interrupted and we hold. I do think there is the possibility that in some states and some conferences or leagues or divisions that there is play that's sort of like normal, just maybe fans aren't there or fans are wearing masks, or maybe you can move the ball down the field, so to speak, with some growth, and you shouldn't take your eyes off the long-term growth curve of your program. So, I would say don't do anything that would cause a regression if you have an opportunity to hold steady or progress toward where your program's heading.
Kind of a random thought, but I'm even thinking about like what happened down at the NBA in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Comments that were made of like you're seeing basketball almost in its purest form because there's not those outside factors of travel and fans and whatnot. I would think that you talk a lot about reviewing your program and getting an honest opinion of where you're at. I think maybe this year could be an honest opinion of like how good are you at basketball.
Yeah,
there are no outside factors for a lot of us. There may be a few parents in the stands, but outside of that, you're going to get to see team versus team basketball only, nothing else affecting it, how good or how not so good your basketball team is, right?
Right. And a more, I guess maybe the decreasing of the impact of a home court advantage, and it's just, are we better than you? Maybe present. I think some time and distance away from this will kind of maybe reveal whether that was the case or not. This situation's doing really nobody any favors, right? Like it's not helping anyone. But I always to the coaches I work with, I say if this situation favors anyone, which I'm not saying it does, but if it did, it certainly favors the program that kind of already has an established identity. They have a way of doing things. They've got a program that's aligned, whether that be 7 through 12 in the interscholastic high school type level, or a program, say like the likes of Villanova, who kind of just rolls out the same thing every year with different players. Mm-hmm. If it favors anyone, it favors those guys, because I do think there's going to be a lot of like, hey, we just got to go play. Like the state said we could play. We got 10 days and our first game's in 2 weeks, and like, let's go. And so if I'm putting in a new playbook every year, coach, like this probably not great for you. But if you have established some parameters and some in your culture around your program and your way of playing is already established, I would think you kind of have to look back and go, man, I'm glad I did that work.
Yeah.
Because this year I'm getting to reap some rewards for us kind of already having our way ingrained.
Yeah. So I guess I would just go to the point, like make sure that you're maximizing this year by focusing on who you are. Being very careful about that quick fix that may show some returns this year, but in the long run, you look back and you're like, man, our program could have taken a bigger step as a culture wise or, program wise in implementing a system that we actually want to use long term.
Another point I would bring up is I've seen a couple of things like I've thought and just sort of try to project myself into a couple situations. This sports year, not only basketball, but football, there have been games that have been scheduled sort of spur of the moment, right? Like there was a BYU Coastal Carolina football game that got arranged, if you will, like the week of the game. They both had cancellations and got on the phone, and ADs made it happen and they played. And there's been basketball games early in the season that, while they were in the bubbles up in Connecticut in the college where they say, hey, y'all want to play? And like they play, like I think there's some lessons that we can take after this is over of like we arranged a game today, we played tomorrow, we didn't get time to do 57 hours of film review, 78 pages of scouting report, and by God, someone still scored a basket and still got a rebound, right? Like it's not that you get what I'm saying? Like we're getting. I do hope that maybe there are some takeaways from this that like down the road we could say, like that we scored a basket anyway, right? Like it's okay.
Yeah. So all that's great for the teams that are playing, but now you've got, in our poll, again, we've got about 35%, 30 to 35%, which is probably pretty representative of what's going on. depending on what state you're in,
Mm-hmm.
who they're either not playing at all or they're still hoping that they may get a chance to play.
Yeah.
I know we'd all, as well-intentioned coaches, like to improve this year. But there may even be some who are super discouraged about that. And, I think the phrase that you use, maybe not in the right place when it comes to leading your own team. What
Yeah.
kind of maybe warnings or make sure that you don't fall into this type of thing would you say to those coaches that fall maybe within those two groups?
Yeah. I think that your challenge in this, if you're in that one of those two categories, is to probably do something you never thought you'd ever have to do when you decided you were going to become a basketball coach, and that's lead a basketball team without the basketball part. and I've seen some coaches and that I do work with that have done some really creative stuff that I think would be great to share here today. A coach that I work with in Illinois named Al Baker, another coach, Coach Yusuf Larry in Houston, Texas. Back when the seasons were suspended and ending and in jeopardy, if you will, or they started doing some things like using Zoom and using connections to watch video together, maybe last year's games, and still take away some learning. A couple of the coaches I work with sort of set up like a points leaderboard where they created a list of, okay, if you do this, and they would send out to their email list of their players in their group chat of like, okay, here's we're going to start a leaderboard of our players, and if you do this ball handling workout, it's worth 5 points, and if you watch this YouTube video and on dribble penetration reactions, it's worth 5 points, and if you go somewhere and make 500 shots today, whether that be your driveway, the gym, the YMCA, or wherever that's open, that's worth 100 points or something. And they kept like a leaderboard to at least still keep that sense of community. I think that's the biggest challenge that I hear from coaches that are in those two categories of not playing or to be determined is, how do I feel disconnected from my team, and how can we still have a community around basketball without the basketball part?
Yeah, and it goes to the point that that community is just simply kind of another way of saying you're trying to develop culture, and those obviously that's one aspect of developing culture. That's not the only way,
Sure.
but being able to do something and achieve things together as a team. Continuing, like you said, to develop competitiveness, even though you're not necessarily competing against each other on the same floor at the same time. I think to this point, probably every coach that has teenagers or older that have access to it have done a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I would even suggest, or I would even maybe get your thoughts on this, that maybe you've seen some other coaches do within those Zoom calls. It's not necessarily just getting on there and saying, "Hey, how you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
or "Let's talk about a book study together," although that would be a
Yeah.
good idea. Are there other ways to maybe connect, build community, build culture that you have heard from other coaches, or things that you've thought about that you would do with your team?
I've had coaches do like a movie night, like they assign their young players now haven't seen like Blue Chips or even Hoosiers or something like that, and they've sort of like said, okay, your homework, if you will, is by Sunday night we're going to gather on a Zoom, but so by Sunday night have watched Hoosiers or something, some old basketball movie or something that and talk about it, just have some fun and share your thoughts on it, just stuff like that. Like, I mean, it seems sort of like silly, but like if it's all you got, it's all you got, right? And as things like that. I think
There are
that
there are things though, even I think I probably should have said this as well. We talk about the Zoom and maybe watching something, doing something together, but technology has made it, even the apps have made it. You can certain programs, this is unpaid, but this is a program like Volt.
Mhm.
You can create a workout that everybody's
Oh yeah,
doing and everybody's seeing the progress together. Can you think
yeah.
of others that similar to that you can be doing things together, or even
Um,
aspects of your program that you break it down and
Yeah,
make
I would say that some of the coaches that I work with do a lot of charting of like shooting performances and things like that, and those drills are are pretty simple. Get a rebounder, get a partner, shoot around the 3-point line for 2 minutes or something, and report. I've seen coaches still maintain something from practice to this interruption, and keep the competition alive, and keep the progress alive. To the group of coaches that's the to be determined group, I would say be ready so you don't have to get ready. I talked to a coach in New Jersey yesterday who basically just got an announcement that okay, you guys are playing and you start practice Monday and you got a game in 2 weeks. And now to that crowd, to the to be determined crowd, in my mind somehow would be the possibility that you're going to get a season. It's not going to be normal. Like this guy in New Jersey, his normal season, 28, 29 games, has now been league only, 15 games. You start practice Monday. Governor gave us the go ahead, ready, go. Right. So like now he's like, oh, whoa, so I would say to the to be determined crowd, be ready so you don't have to get ready, and entertain the possibility that it could be a shortened timeline. It could, maybe you used to have 10, 15 practice to lead up to your first performances. It may be a week now. It may, to give the kids a chance to play, we've got to squish the timeline. So be ready so you don't have to get ready. I don't think we're having that problem though. I think most coaches have had enough time to sit around. They probably have, practice plans just ready to go, just ready to stick in their pocket and get on the court,
Yeah. So let's transition to that, because what we've really been talking about has kind of involved the players and what can we do, to help them and still help our team and whatever. But you've got these coaches who are operating from their perspective. Some of them have been just devouring clinics and whatnot for the last 9 months. I mean, we've been doing this since March, right?
Right.
Some quit a long time ago because they took so much in that they felt sick to their stomach. All this information. What warning would you give to some of those? Or now that they have all this information, what should they do with it?
Wow, that's a great question. I think there was like this emotion of coaches are used to having active, packed days full of learning and teaching, and that was taken away, and it felt weird, for lack of a better term, to just sit around and watch Netflix or like take up gardening or something. Like it just felt weird. So there was this action, this compelling feeling that swept over coaches, like you got to be doing something or you're not grinding or you don't want it bad enough or whatever. I definitely saw what you saw. I would say my advice to coaches always is that you need to have sort of a filter on your intake. A filter, if you will, of all right, there's 10 clinics on the docket today, but I don't really use this type of offense or defense, and that's not something I really believe in or want to do with my program. So I don't have to watch that one. I can go for a walk during that time. So hopefully you have some sort of filter that helped you just not eat everything on the cafeteria table, right? Like. Secondly, if you maybe did eat everything on the cafeteria table, now it's time to synthesize, right? Like what are you going to use? What was usable? What did you find the most impactful? What do you think could generate some immediate return? That I try when I deliver a clinic is to give something, if it's even just one sentence, one vocabulary piece or something that you can use right now, today. You can start it and adopt it tomorrow. So what are those things? And then if something was just like, it was pretty interesting, I'll just stick it in the back of my, virtual file, if you will. Then now may be the time to kind of delete some of that stuff you gathered. There's science to behind the idea that clutter, whether physical, like junk in your garage or your closet, or digital, stuff on your computer that you're going to get to someday, like that gives us stress. And it may be on a subconscious level. Like, sometimes sitting from right here where I'm sitting in this chair speaking to you, I've got one eye and I can see into this closet in my office, and there's some stuff in there. I never do anything about it, but it bothers me. And then I get busy and I don't, like, there's some clutter in our lives that it feels harmless because I'm not using it. It's just on my hard drive, right? Like, but it's there.
Yeah,
it's there. It's with you, and now is probably the time to synthesize a lot of the information. What did I consume that I can use? What's just something, me being a pack rat, that I can just get rid of, right? So I would say that, man, that has been a huge challenge. Mm-hmm. This idle time for a sector of the population, coaches that are used to having no idle time, like, sun up to past sundown is the coaching life. And now it was taken away and it was filled with all this consumption. Mm-hmm. Now what?
Yeah. I've heard a couple coaches say that one of the things that it's allowed them to do has been to actually focus in on what they actually now want to be doing. So even though they've consumed all this information, it's allowed them to really now determine what actually is the junk, and then to maybe go more deep onto the things that they care about. And this is the thing that this might be one of the most valuable things, or the only valuable thing I say during this entire time. I said this to a group of players this week. I think that a lot of coaches stopped going to coaching clinics because they think that they can just get whatever online. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, I would almost encourage you to continue to watch clinics, but filter even what you sign up for and what you want to go to.
Yeah.
Even if it's something that you think that you know everything about, as you sit there and listen. I've sat plenty of clinics where I've sat there and listened and thought, man, I already know to an extent kind of everything that this coach is saying, but where I get the value is a phrase that he uses to teach something and to teach better than I have, or a little nugget of how to teach something slightly different.
A drill that I should be using. Yeah,
for sure. And if I'd have never gone to that clinic because I thought I know all about this is the American lifestyle. Like, just give me more. I already got that. But give me something new and give me something different. Whereas if you get rid of the other stuff, like you said, and maybe go deeper into things and focus more on things.
Yeah, I always make the analogy that the topic of basketball, let's analogize that to music, right? Like, there's country and Western music, there's rap, hip hop, classical, jazz. I mean, the subcategories of music, like, you could never know all about everything about music.
Yeah.
But you may be a hip hop lover who knows that deeply. I would say find your genre of basketball. Mm-hmm. And like, if I'm a hip hop lover, I may not know Brad Paisley from George Strait, but I know everything about this type of music. I'm a music guy, still a music guy, but I don't know jazz, or I don't know classical or opera or whatever, but I know this very, very well. I would say let's find our basketball genre, and if I'm a zone coach, that's the channel I tune into. Mm-hmm. If I'm a pick and roll offensive coach, like I go through, I scan the topics, right? But like, I don't run that. I don't use that. That's not. I don't do this. I do. I'm tuning in for that. Mm-hmm. That's what I meant by filter. Is like, as a coach, what's your genre? What are you? Basketball is too big of a topic to say I know I'm an expert in it all, right? Mm-hmm. Just like music, like there's no way I could be an expert in all genres of music. You're just not going to live long enough, right? Like, but you can be in one or two genres an expert.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. We'll kind of finish it with that. Even what Coach was just talking about there, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you got even an article about that.
I do. It's on radiusathletics.com blog, I think.
Yeah, be sure to check that out. Be sure to check his website out as well. Appreciate those that tuned in today. I hope, whether or not you're playing any games this year or not, that some of the things that we've talked about can be a help to maybe things that you can implement in with your program, or maybe things that you can implement on your own learning over the next few weeks, next few months. Hopefully that's not the case for you, but next few months of not having basketball to improve your team in the long run. So, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. We will try to do this on a weekly basis. We're trying to run this through at least the end of the basketball season, probably through March Madness, maybe a little bit beyond that as well. So be on the lookout for that. Check out Radius Athletics on Twitter and my Twitter feed as well for more information about when we'll run that next week. For Randy Sherman of Radius Athletics and Coach Tony Miller, we'll talk to you next week.